What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the February 12th, 2019 edition of the Go With The Flow podcast. I'm Nick Phillips, joined by the birthday boy, Danny Carrots Merritt.
What's up, fellas? How's everybody doing?
All right. And Kevin Bartman, what's up, fella?
What's up, boys? It's been little bit, just a little bit.
Just a little bit since the gang's been back together. Dan was on a hiatus across the pond. Sure, he was getting in one on a very
regular basis. Yes, very much so. It
pretty much seemed like that's exactly what he was doing from what I gathered.
Yeah. Hurt the wallet, hurt the liver a little bit, but it was worth it. So glad to be back home, though.
No, that's great. Well, speaking of ponds, I guess we'll talk about the Anaheim Ducks, or as I like to call them, the Anaheim Cucks, because they are the losers of 7 straight and 19 of 21. Within the past couple days, they have fired Randy Carlyle, who was in his second stint as their head coach. Obviously, he won the 2007 Stanley Cup against Ottawa. Behind their bench, was fired shortly thereafter, a few years later, and then made his return a couple years ago after they shit-canned Bruce Boudreau, who's obviously had his struggles in the early rounds of the playoffs. But, so Bob Murray, longtime GM there in Anaheim, he has not only fired Randy Carlyle, but promoted himself into the vacant coaching spot. He's named himself, I believe, the interim coach, not the full-time head coach. And I believe his rationale was that he wanted to kind of be in the trenches, know exactly what the flaws were with the team, what was wrong with the chemistry, just really be on the front lines there to a lot of war references, but sorry. But just really wanted to see, what exactly is ailing the Ducks, firsthand. And so he can make roster management moves accordingly. So, boys, any initial thoughts right off the bat? Obviously, they're doing shitty, but I would say they've got a good goaltender in Gibson. They've got some really nice young defensemen. They've got obviously some veteran forwards, but a couple younger guys like Raquel and stuff. That if you would have told me a team was going to lose 19 out of 21 this year, I wouldn't have picked Anaheim. But boys, what do you think the problem is in Anaheim?
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Like you, I think, I definitely wouldn't have picked them to be the ones to go on this big of a losing streak. And it's really not a team that should be the talent that you mentioned, both young and old. Carlisle's a decent coach. I mean, he won, like you said, he won a couple of them. He knows what it takes to win, how to get there. And, maybe a little bad luck, couple, 2-3 games. Also at the end, my what the puck moment's going to be the honeymoon couple that went on the Ducks road trip. We'll get to that later, though. But yeah, just really surprising. And usually, every team has their ups and downs. You hit a slump, 5, 6, 7 games. You're just praying for it to end. And this is like the nightmare from hell that just won't end. This is a slump that's been going on for far too long. And, from a team with such grizzled seasoned veterans, it's quite surprising. So, hopefully for their sake, they can get the fuck out of this ASAP. Kev, what do you think, man?
So initially, I remember sort of thinking at the beginning of the year that Anaheim was a team that hasn't really, it feels like just on the outside looking in, they haven't made a concerted effort to sort of get younger and faster. They're relying quite a bit on, their veterans, like you said, Dan, like the Ryan Getzlafs, Corey Perry's, all those names you've been hearing for the last decade now. But, it just seems like, Father Time is starting to catch up a little bit.
Kessler, too. Not to butt in, but
Ryan Kessler, yeah. Fuck Ryan Kessler, by the way. Hate that guy. But then it's sort of an interesting angle of how they're going about, sort of solving this. You don't quite see execs just, sort of step in and become the head coach themselves, just to sort of see. The way I look at it is that it's sort of a lost season already, even though they're not terribly far out of a playoff spot. But it's sort of interesting to see that he's, sort of taking it into his own hands, seeing what's going on, what he thinks is going to be best, from a locker room standpoint, and then sort of looking from the inside out. So, I think it'll be interesting to see how they go about hiring this next head coach, and then just sort of I don't know if they're going to necessarily blow it all up because they still have a lot of talent, but it's, they're going to have to do quite a bit to sort of catch up to where the league's going.
Yeah, I mean, they've made a few moves here within the last year or so that you can kind of say that they didn't really necessarily get younger or get any quicker because, they went out and traded Cogliano a couple months ago, and then there was that Sammy Vatanen for Adam Henrique trade. So that's kind of like the last couple big moves I feel like that Bob Murray's made. And, maybe Andrew Cogliano isn't the the difference between a cup or not, but, he's still a good player. He's fast. And I'm just like you said, Kev, they're just very veteran heavy, and obviously they've got a couple younger forwards that are pretty good, like Raquel and Silfverberg. I feel like, they should be doing a little better. They should, as a team, they should be doing a little better. But yeah, I don't remember the last time a GM has thrown himself like directly in the fire like this. This is pretty unique. And I think it is sort of, although they're not far out of it, if they get hot all of a sudden, like, good for them. But I think they're going to discover, Bob Murray's going to discover things he thinks are wrong with them. But I know a lot of Anaheim fans are very displeased with them. Like, a lot of people wanted not only Carlisle gone, but they wanted Murray gone. And now it seems like Murray's been given the authority to be the head coach. And then it sounds like if he's going to be the head coach then the year, they're probably already planning on bringing him back as GM, because it feels like the reason he's doing this is to make more informed, educated roster decisions. So I think that's going to be a really interesting element there. And I think it's going to make the players really they're going to be like on real thin ice, because it's like, like the GM is behind the bench. Like that guy doesn't, if you don't perform with the guy behind the bench, like he can just trade your ass in the offseason, or he can flip you at the deadline.
Yeah, I think it's definitely an unorthodox thing. And I think if it works, good for him. And that's going to look really nice, kind of on his resume. Hey, like, I handled 2 jobs here, fixed a team that was, just complete ass for whatever reason, underperformance, whatever. Either that or it's going to be embarrassing for him. Being the guy that'll be like, oh yeah, well, I fired the last coach, I made myself head coach, and he's just as worse. It almost sounds like a kind of like an in-house move, a la like Edmonton when they, before they had Chiarelli come on, they were hiring McTavish. It is McTavish, right?
Yeah.
As their GM or whatever. Yeah, it was all those in-house moves, and it never seemed to work. That's kind of what this feels like, just, on a smaller scale, I guess. But it'll be interesting to see if this bet, or whatever you want to call it, kind of pays off.
It's just really weird to me, because I feel like if I were a player and, essentially the GM became the coach and like kind of on your tail all the time, I wouldn't be able to be myself,
Yeah, I think it would affect like the younger kids too a little bit more. Like if I'm Getzlaff or Perry, like I'm not, or Kessler, like I've been in the league long enough to like not really worry about it. I feel like, because they've seen fucking everything. They've been around for 10 plus years. But as a younger player, I don't know, if I'm coming up, I'm like, holy shit, like this is the dude that can not only bench me, but he can just take it a step further, bench my ass for the game, and then he just says, okay, see you never. So, as a younger player, I think I'm a little bit more nervous. And I think that's where you need to rely on your vets a little bit more. And maybe that extra pressure that, let's say the younger players feel, they look up to their captains, and then maybe that kind of just slowly gets the ball rolling. Maybe they do need this fire lit under their ass where it's like an oh shit moment where like I could be traded at any second. I need to start performing.
I think it's obviously interesting that Bob Murray's taking over, but no matter how you slice it, like they needed at least a head coaching change, like at the absolute bare minimum. If you look at they've lost 19-21, but if you look at the scores of their 7-game losing streak, I will run through really quickly, like the last 7 results. So this was game 1 of the losing streak. At the Islanders, they lost 3-0. Hosting the Blues, lost 5-1. At the Jets, lost 9-3. At the Leafs, lost 6-1. At Montreal, lost 4-1. At Ottawa, lost 4-0. And at Philly, lost 6-2. Like that team, that's a team that was just sleepwalking, mentally dead, just quite frankly, like just quit. Like, so obviously I'm sure when you have a inkling that your coach is going to get fired, it's hard to focus. Like, we saw a few coaching firings earlier this year, even, with our own team. And when things are, when you sense that there could be overhaul and change coming, like, it's probably hard to focus and be yourself. But I mean, they haven't even competed in their last 7 games. Like, it's very obvious that they're talented and they're not even close to being focused. So I guess Murray feels like he's got to get to the bottom of it. And by making his, his aura or whatever you want to call it more present and, kind of staring down, people's backs, like, it's, if this doesn't fire him up to play, like, what will? Because it's like, well, if you don't start playing better, like, I'm also the guy that can ship your ass out of town or not re-sign you as a free agent. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
Either way, they're kind of fucked.
Oh yeah, another team. But we're not just going around just trying to shit talk every team. But since we last spoke within the past few days, maybe week, I don't really know. The Edmonton Oilers let Peter Chiarelli extend a goalie who's played about half a season at a $4.5 million a year clip. And then like 3 or 4 days later decided to fire him. So that just shows you the ineptitude in Edmonton. Edmonton, obviously, throwing it back to Anaheim, they played a 7-game series against each other. Edmonton, looked like they're finally coming around. You have some young pieces. Obviously, with McDavid there and, Hall and all this good stuff. And then you just make a couple colossal, really bad decisions. You bring in Lucic, obviously Larson for Hall. We could beat that one up. Strome for Eberle is a disaster of a trade. I mean, Chiarelli just really has kind of put them in cap hell. And like, you've got McDavid, you've got Draisaitl, which is great, but man, like, you really just don't have any depth scoring on that team at all. So he basically like crippled that franchise. It's hard to understand why you have McDavid, you have Draisaitl, and you're that bad. But Chiarelli's gone, and Edmonton's on the outside looking in again, and they're looking like a team the way they're playing right now. They might be in the top 5 again, or God Almighty if they win the lottery again. But
yeah, I'll ask it. Well, first off, I was going to say with the Oilers, it's really unfortunate. I got to watch them play last year against Minnesota, and Minnesota, I think, won like 5-2 because the Oilers were just god awful. But if you're an Oiler, and it kind of sucks. I don't know. I was super young when the Hawks were really garbage. But I think what I'm trying to say is, like, you could be like, oh yeah, well, we have McDavid and we have Draisaitl, but it's like, okay, well, we've had them for a while now, and we're still like horseshit. I mean, those guys are doing the best they can, pulling all this weight. You saw the Hawks beat them, just a week ago, if that. And Draisaitl and McDavid were there to answer the bell, but nobody else was. The question that I was going to ask, see what you two think, is do you think Chiarelli sort of like, I guess the word would be blacklisted himself, or like just teams would be, just a big like no, like if you're looking to hire a GM. I mean, it's 2 franchises he's thrown under the bus. People forget, he's in Boston. You got a great talent in Tyler Seguin, still fucking phenomenal, and you trade him away to the Stars for, I can't even remember who. Louis Eriksson. Yeah, Louis Eriksson. And no disrespect to Louis Eriksson, he's a good player, but he's not Tyler Seguin. And then, when he left Boston had huge like salary cap problems. They couldn't really move anybody, and there were some sort of dark looking days for them. And now he goes to Edmonton, basically does the same thing, and then gets fired. If I'm, an owner or whatever of a team that's looking for a GM, I don't think his name's anywhere. I don't think it's going to be like a 3rd time's the charm sort of thing. I think he's fucking done, unless you're super, super desperate.
I mean, so the Seguin trade is like, I guess I'd have to sit down and sort of like look back in time, but that's one of the worst trades ever made. No, and
not even his worst.
Yeah, that's
not even his worst trade. How sad is that?
I mean, no part of that trade is with the Bruins organization
anymore.
because too much time has passed, but like they either trade away any picks or any players are just gone now.
Yeah.
So it's like, just getting back to the Oilers as a whole, like the organization, I could not be any less sympathetic. They've had like a million first overall picks, haven't done shit. So like, you know what? Tough shit. Like, I'm sorry.
I feel bad for the fans. I don't give a shit about the organization as a whole, but like the fans, like you got to, especially being Hawks fans when we were in that position, but to sort of reinforce your point, we didn't have like 8 first-round draft picks and piss them all away. We had 2, and they've won 3 cups.
Exactly.
Humble brag there. No big deal, by the way, for the Hawks.
Just had to throw that in there. But like, you do feel bad for Connor McDavid because like he seems like a guy that's not very vocal, but he has been pretty vocal recently about like, I think you said something along the lines of, if you don't want to be here, then like get out of this locker room, something to that effect.
Mm-hmm. So I like that.
It's nice that he clearly like gives a shit about this organization winning. Also it might help that they're paying him like $12 million a year, but like it's really hard to feel bad for him because they've had so many opportunities to change, like turn their franchise around, because that's what can happen with the first overall pick. But, you know, time and time again, they've just sort of failed. And then, you know, Connor McDavid falls in their lap and still they can't get it done. So
this franchise is completely inept. It took them forever to get that new arena. Finally got a new arena. I mean, you've had multiple top end picks. Obviously the Yakupov pick was an epic disaster. You trade Hall for Larson, just Eberle for Strome, just poor asset management by Chiarelli, and the Lucic contract is huge. And Katz, the owner, and then you have Lowe, who's like, I don't know what his position is, like CEO or something, but he used to, they used to have it's like one of those things where all the 80s Oilers used to like be in the organization, and like those guys are like legends there, and like, but they're just not good. They're just not good hockey ops people. And those guys are still got a couple bad apples who are even above like, the GM and everything. And so when those guys are there, they're not going to hire the competent people that are going to be able to be the difference makers. Because I mean, at some point, like if you're Connor McDavid, like at what point, like I'm not saying he's going to ask for a trade in the offseason, but man, if the next GM hire isn't a home run and he can't create cap space and he can't recruit free agents to come, or he can't make a couple shrewd trades, he's going to sit there and be like, yeah, I like playing with Draisaitl, but when the hell am I going to get some help? And I'm wasting the some of my prime years. Like he's going to be a great player for a long time, but I mean, there's no reason the team with him and Draisaitl should be that bad. Like, and just to show how overall, and like I said earlier, Koskinen, like he's 30 years old. He's playing in his first ever, I guess second, because he had a cup of coffee with the Isles in like 2011. But he's played 30 games this year. He's got a .906 save percentage in 4 days. This was also a couple weeks ago. I guess time's flying on me. But anyway, this is recently. It's within the last month, 3-4 weeks. Like they pretty much had an idea that they were going to fire Chiarelli, and they let him sign this guy for $4.5 million a year over 3 years. Like, not to make everything about the Blackhawks, but we just re-signed a goalie for 3 years, $3 million. I mean, $1 million AAV, who's come up this year, shown he's pretty competent, but they didn't give him $4.5 million. Like, why are you giving the Chiarelli the power to make these decisions if you're going to fire him? Like, I don't understand it. And all it did was create even more of a problem for their cap. So stupid.
And then another good point, which I heard on, I suppose, the daddy of hockey podcasts, Chicklets. I hadn't thought of it this way, but hearing Biz sort of talk about it makes perfect sense. From Draisaitl and McDavid's standpoint is, you guys have, they have ridiculously nice contracts, right? Like they're getting paid a shitload of money. But seeing Matthews get paid just recently and seeing the talent that he's with and how good they've been, like that was exactly Biz's point. If I'm McDavid and Draisaitl, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? It's like the two of us and no help. Like the weight of this team is on our back. Meanwhile, in Toronto, you got, McDavid, Nylander just re-signed. Marner's probably going to re-sign it. You got Tavares, and then they just signed Muzzin on the back end. You got some good goaltending. Like, that's the team. To me, that's the team that Edmonton should be, is somewhere along Toronto's, where it's like, holy shit, like these guys are young, they're fast, they're skilled, they're really good. In the next 5-6 years, look out, because they're going to be making cup runs left and right. And instead it's just it's literally the complete opposite, the two of them. And it's really upsetting to see, because the other thing that I was going to bring up, and Kevin, I know you love them, are the Flames, who are doing really well. That rivalry is just sort of, well, it like kind of sucks, right? So it's better for hockey, I think, if Edmonton's doing well. You get that Alberta rivalry going. It's not really this year. They won't see each other in the playoffs. And that sort of makes me sad. You can't see a Gaudreau-McDavid matchup because the Oilers just fucking suck.
I mean, I think it's just better for hockey in general when the Canadian franchises
are
doing well.
True, exactly.
Because, I mean...
Except Winnipeg. Fuck Winnipeg. I hate them.
I mean, they're just the most passionate about hockey because it's their national sport and, all that stuff. So the thing is with Edmonton, though, it's McDavid and Draisaitl sort of control their own destiny, because if they're the, attraction to playing at Edmonton. Like, it's a really volatile fan base, a passionate one, but they'll get on your back and they'll hate you, like that.
Throw your jersey on the ice, all that shit.
Yeah, that was a McDavid jersey. They threw Connor McDavid's jersey on the
ice.
How about that?
That guy's a fucking idiot.
Where the fuck would they be without Connor McDavid right now?
Anyways, though, so it's kind of a big responsibility for Connor McDavid, because I don't know how much you can expect of him to sort of, bring in free agents, but that's kind of their one selling point right now is, do you want to play with Connor McDavid? Yes or no?
Well, they can't. It's not even a choice. They don't have cap space right now.
Yeah. So they're just digging themselves in a deeper hole. And how they let Chiarelli do that last move is because here's the thing. There had to have been some ongoing dialogue prior to that actual signing. It couldn't have just been one day he woke up, he's like, oh, I'm going to sign you for $4.5 million. That just couldn't have happened. It had to have been an ongoing thing, and the Oilers must have just let it happen. Which is kind of
fucking sabotage. He just knew he's getting shit canned to just ink the guy.
I kind of respect it, to be honest, but Jesus, how do you let that happen?
I mean, but no one is going to give him a fucking job.
That was what my point was with the question. It's
two franchises out about that. Still, they're
franchises. Who, Boston?
No, the Edmonton fans over.
Oh, Edmonton, yeah.
They're still they're just fuck, man.
Yeah. Well, actually, on a side note, if I was a Boston fan,
I don't understand it.
I'd still be pissed off as a Boston fan too, even.
Yeah, they're doing okay though.
Sweeney's
true, but still,
they hit a home run with Sweeney. He is really. Their young players are very good, and he's kept the foundation there together.
That Pastrnak deal is going to be awesome.
Oh yeah.
Pasta's so fucking good.
He's making a lot of money, but he's so good.
Bergeron's having one of the best years in his career again. The dude's fucking unbelievable.
Game 1,000.
Yeah, one of the best two-way centers, period.
Oh my God. I shared the stat, I think. Did I? Oh man, this is some bad radio, but someone wants to jump in. I'm going to try to find it. I think it was his 1,000th game. He had some fucking absurd stat line where he was it was he was on the ice for 14 minutes of that game or something where I don't know what it was, but they didn't have the other team didn't record a shot while he was on the ice the whole game or something. It was absurd.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I'll go find that's nuts.
But yeah, Bergeron, I think, just had a game 1,000, right? So
yeah, pretty recently, yeah.
This year. Yeah. Okay, here you go. I found it already. So Bruins honor Patrice Bergeron before the game. During the game he plays, 14 minutes and 52 seconds of 5-on-5. The Kings do not get a shot on goal in that time. His line scores twice. He sets up a shorthanded goal and scores a game winner in overtime.
Not a big deal.
Not a big fucking deal.
All right, the Kings suck, but still, that shouldn't take anything away from that stat. That's an absurd stat.
Yeah. Sorry, it took a second to dig it up.
Also, credit to whoever paid attention to that and kept track because that's hard as shit to stick with. Imagine figuring that out. Like, that takes a lot of work.
Yeah. Boys, maybe talk about Auston Matthews real quick. Just like instant analysis of his contract. I think we all think he's worth it.
Fuckers getting paid.
This was, I think, the 5-year deal, the 5-year term sort of signifies what Toronto thinks is like their, like, go out and win as many cups as you can, period.
Yeah.
Because
they could have signed him to what, like 8, I think he said was in the – it was like 3 years they were talking, and then 8, I think, was the longest.
Yeah, how old is he now when he's going to be – he's going to be, what, 26, and he can get another contract?
Probably 26, 27 maybe.
And if the cap's even higher, then he's going to get even more of an AAV. So
yeah.
Just going to bet on himself. And
I mean, they've got that whole core locked up for Matthews' whole contract minus Mitch Marner, who I think Bob McKenzie made a little graphic, or he explained this on his podcast, how they can't afford him somehow. So, like, if they're able to lock up Mitch Marner for, I don't know, like, if by some, I don't know, magic trick they can get him to take a bridge deal and lock him up for another 3 years or something like that, 2-3 years. That's like okay, we better win a Stanley Cup. Otherwise, this whole thing is like a failure.
Yeah.
Because you got Matthews.
I really hope they do.
Nylander's for another 6 years. John Tavares is going to spend the rest of his career in Toronto. Pretty much everyone. Yeah. Morgan Riley. Muzzin. Did they sign Jake Muzzin, or did they just trade for him? Did they extend him?
Trade, I think that was it. Yeah.
They traded for him. I don't know if they're going to extend him, but
you know what they're going to do, folks?
What?
We talked about him. Well, when Kevin and I were doing our shows earlier in the season for a bit, we talked about this gentleman ad nauseum. But you know, the way Nylander's been playing, could they try to trade him for a young defenseman and then who's signed for cheaper than $6 million? I wouldn't rule him out getting traded at all this offseason. I mean,
he has not played well at all.
Because Mitch Marner, I don't expected Marner to. I mean, obviously we all know he's a stud, but I mean, is he still top 5 in the league in scoring? I mean, he's up there. I mean,
well, and with the Nylander thing is, you know, you can't really expect a signing midseason for him to just immediately come back to how he was last year, like in form, you know, 100% ready to go. But it's been long enough now where it's like, dude, come on, like you got paid, congrats. You know, we think you're worth it, except, you know, now you're sort of not. Maybe it depends on how playoffs go. You know, if he produces a shit ton in the playoffs, then why would you get rid of him, you know? But if he continues on this bad, you know, not producing sort of streak or whatever you want to call it, I'd be a little worried.
I mean, he's 21, 22, so like there's still a ton of upside. Obviously, he's incredibly talented, but like it was just a really weird situation from the start, and it just sort of seemed like that there's always this sort of overriding feeling that it was in a blaze of fire in some way, shape, or form. Because like if I'm, you know, if I want my core guys to be all in on like playing for the Leafs for a long time, and it just didn't seem like that was the case with Nylander. That's sort of how it is now.
10 points in 27 games, by the way, are his stats. 3 goals.
3 goals.
3 goals and 7 assists. That's not. I mean, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I mean, do you know how many offhand he had last year? Fucking more than that.
I mean,
obviously.
yeah, he's been at 20.
At least 60.
I was going to say at least
61
50.
points in back years.
There you go.
Well, I mean, he came up for 22 games in 15-16, but he had 61 points.
Yeah.
He's very durable. I mean, he played 81 games in 16-17, and I don't know what the circumstances were around the one game. I think they were in the playoffs that year. Maybe not, but maybe they rested him like game 82. But played all the games last year. I mean, 61 points in your, you know, the seasons in which you turn 21 and 22, or that's pretty good. So I understand why they thought he'd return to form, and you know, with adding a Tavares and the way Marner and Matthews are playing, you'd only think he's going to be playing with better players. And Morgan Riley's really stepped up his offensive game. I mean, that guy's got like a lot of points for a defenseman. That guy's having a hell of an offensive season. So, yeah, I mean, you look at the Leafs and you look at their top end forwards are very top end, and they're going to have to pay them a lot. And I mean, that's not where it ends. I mean, you got guys like Kapanen who are going to require some decent coin too. So, I mean, if you got Nylander locked up, he's young. He's probably pretty respected. Across the NHL, plenty of GMs would probably. I wouldn't even call it taking a gamble. I bet you a dozen teams would line up to try to trade for him if Dubas put him on the block. But yeah, the Leafs. I mean, even though you got Jake Muzzin, I mean, I still don't think they're fully set on their defense. I think they'll probably let Gardner walk this offseason and maybe try to trade Nylander for a guy and just, maybe potentially. I mean, I think it's entirely possible he comes back, but I mean, you got to make hard decisions. And I think Kapanen, Tavares, Matthews, Marner, they're all out playing him right now. And that's just the reality of it. And I think this summer they're eligible to trade him. So he's a name I could definitely see getting traded at the draft for a defenseman or something.
It's also kind of hard to imagine he plays this poorly for this long, though, too. Like, at some point, he's got to pick it up. He's too good. There's too much talent around him to sort of just be this.
Right. You'd certainly
subpar.
Think that.
Yeah. So, yeah. That is an interesting point, though, to trade him, because they were doing just fine without him to start the year. So, I guess, we'll see.
And listen, they're still a great team, but they have not played their best hockey of the season so far. I mean, they came out of the gates just buzzing, and they've kind of just been playing so-so hockey the past few weeks. I wouldn't say they're struggling, but they're not really necessarily killing it right now. They're you kind of look at the standings and everything, and there was a time where they were kind of like neck and neck with Tampa, and now they're 15 points behind Tampa, and they're only a point up on Boston right now with plenty of hockey to go. So
I think sorry to interrupt. I was going to say just real quick on that Tampa point. I think that alludes a lot to just how fucking good Tampa is too, though. Not even like they just don't lose.
What a wagon.
Like forget like the Leafs part of it. That team just does not lose ever.
Except to the Blues when we needed them
to win. Yeah. Yeah. We'll just ignore that point real quick.
Dude, this is how it goes every year with the Lightning, though. This is how I feel. They just absolutely are killing it during the regular season. In the playoffs, this
one feels different, man.
This one feels like they're just fucking unstoppable.
I said that last year too. I
mean, dude, they're 15 up on like the next best team in the league. Like they're like there's like a 6-7 game essentially gap between them and like Calgary and Winnipeg even. Like
okay, so I'll ask you this then. What do you think they do at the deadline?
Fuck, I don't really know, man. Like their goaltending
they don't have one glaring need.
Their goaltending tandem is sick. Like Louis Dominique is like, I mean, it helps when you got those guys up front just burying everything. But Kucherov again, just unbelievable season for him. That guy's top 3 player in the world right now, no doubt about it. Just unbelievable player.
I think they'll probably add like
maybe a vet in the fourth line.
I was gonna say I would equate it to like an Antoine Vermette trade, like a depth bottom 6 forward.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Something to pick up the slack, sort of thing.
You know what they should?
Eat
they
up
should
some
trade
minutes.
for Chris Kunitz. That's who they should get.
Yo, you mean the guy that they cut last year?
They should trade for him.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be. Yeah. May I offer them an Artem Anisimov? Could I interest them?
Oh. Well, I mean, who the fuck would they trade away? Like,
Ryan Callahan.
Yeah,
they healthy scratched him. Imagine that. You're fucking healthy scratching a Ryan Callahan who any team would love to have for a playoff run on their fourth line, I feel like. I mean, yeah, his best years are behind him, but that team is so good. I mean, it's really ridiculous. But yeah, Dominique's like 10-0 his last 10 starts. Obviously, you got Vasilevsky, who's been back for a while from his injury. Kucherov's insane. Braden Point is just ridiculous. You still got Stammer. You got a lot of really good veteran forwards on the team. Like Palat's been there a bit. Killorn. Like this is just an absolute
That blue line's still.
We haven't even talked about the defense. I mean,
yeah, the blue line's fucking absurd too. God. Just everything about them is just ridiculous.
Hedman, McDonough.
The only concern is just for me the playoff thing. I think that if there's ever been a year for them to actually win the damn cup, it's definitely this one. The key for me is they've been hot all season. Can they keep it hot during the playoffs? Because you guys know all it takes is one hot goalie for them to face and a couple bounces for the other team, and they're out. I mean, that's the case for any team in the playoffs. Is if the other team gets those bounces and has a hot goaltender or whatever. Well, but it's just did they peak too soon?
That's an interesting point because as we stand right now on the night of February 11th, as we're recording this, the current playoff goalies right now would be in the East are Freddie Anderson, Tuukka Rask, Tomas Greiss, who's actually been really good, Braden Holtby, Sergei Bobrovsky, Carey Price, and Matt Murray. That's who's in the East right now. If playoffs started today, they'd be playing Pittsburgh. That's just how it is right now. That's a wild
dude. That's a series they could lose.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely is. But I could also see them just absolutely fucking destroying them too, though. Dude, it just depends on if they're hot or not.
I don't know how many times I got to watch Crosby, Gensel, Malkin just rip it up.
I'm sick and tired of them. Gensel's just stupid. If anybody's going to come alive if that series does happen, it's going to be Gensel, and he's just going to tear him a new one. Dude will have like 4 goals every game or something like that. Guy's absurd.
Do we want to touch on the Blues real quick? My God, there's a couple really hot teams. So maybe we can kind of loop them together. But I think to start January or something, the Blues were like 10 points out of the playoffs. They are now pretty firmly in the top wild card spot in the West. It's a byproduct of the Western Conference not being as you get toward the bottom there, it's kind of a shit show. It's just a bunch of teams kind of in one group of kind of wavering, just haven't been consistent at all this year. So I think the Blues have won 6 in a row. So their last 3 wins were Tampa, and then they won a back-to-back against Nashville. So to the chagrin of Wild, Canucks, Avs, and Blackhawks fans, the Blues have gotten very hot. Minnesota seems to be kind of free-falling there with Koivu being out for the year. I think he
loving it up here in Minnesota. Hit the self-destruct
button. I feel bad for Mikko, but still.
No.
This is just classic.
No, I'm talking about.
I'm going to
classic Minnesota.
I apologize if we have any Minnesota listeners, but your team is boring. There's no one on the planet that would rather watch the Minnesota Wild in the playoffs over the Blues, Elias Peterson, Rantanen and McKinnon, the Blackhawks. No one wants to see the Wild in there.
It's a shame because their atmosphere is so good. It's such a good atmosphere in that building.
The Wild fans have to admit, I'd rather watch Rantanen or McKinnon or Patty Kane this year. Oh, and I'm also going to say something. Yeah, the Hawks have won 7 in a row. Kucherov, don't get me wrong. Guy has been amazing. If Patrick Kane and the Blackhawks make the playoffs, if this guy wills this fucking team into even the fucking last playoff spot, which it most likely would be, give him the fucking heart. Give him the fucking heart. I don't care. If they get in, he is the MVP.
Yeah.
Easily, far and away.
His streak right now, I think it's 31 points. He's got a 14-game point streak, and I think it's 31 points.
Yeah. Well, and the way I always look at I don't even know what I was going to say there. MVPs is you take him away from that team, and what do you have left? If you take Kucherov away, it hurts. The guy, like you said, he puts up ridiculous numbers, but you still got just an absolutely stacked roster from top down. If you take Patrick Kane away, that's a lot of points taken away from DeBrincat because DeBrincat gets set up half the time by Kane. And then, Taves is having a really good year, but you take away Kane, that's it. The Hawks suck.
Jack Hughes.
They're done. Yeah. And so as far as I'm concerned, McDavid would be another really good example. You take Connor McDavid. Well, I mean, the Oilers already suck. But you take McDavid away, and they're just even worse. Same as the Hawks. So, yeah. But you know what I mean. I that's why I think if there's ever a year for Kaner to get it, it would be this fucking one. So just give it to him. Jeez.
I think I saw the top 3 scorers in the NHL since January 20th.
They're 4 of them. The 4 Blackhawks.
Patrick Kane, Alex DeBrincat, Dylan Strome, and who's the fourth?
Taves.
Jonathan Taves, yeah.
And then it's like Marchand is like next, and then
and overall, Kane's what, like second only behind Matthews or something like that, right? Kucherov, yeah.
Well, Matthews got hurt for a bit. He's not like on a per game basis, probably up there, but
Kane, he was first after the Detroit game yesterday. Then Kucherov, I think he scored later that night, so he's got it back. But either way, like
Kucherov's, it's mostly assists. I think Kaner's got like 6 or 7 more goals than Kucherov.
Dude, but like I said earlier, remember, I think it was last year actually. Nikita Kucherov was on a incredible pace, you know, probably 2/3 of the way through the year, and then he sort of fizzled out a little bit. Just saying.
So, Patrick Kane right now, like logic says there's no way he can keep this up, but the guy makes fucking plays. I don't know
if there's anybody to keep it up, it's fucking him.
But I'm not saying it's going to happen, but he is on pace to hit 121 points this year. That's his current pace.
Bananas. What did he actually hit? Like 106 points wise when he won it?
I could hockey DB it.
I think it was like 106 points.
The last guy to score 120, was it Crosby?
Oh man, good question. The Hawks have only had it happen a couple. Yeah, dude, Dano nailed it.
106. That's what I thought.
16, 106 points, and then he hit 89 the next year. So he hasn't even eclipsed. He's only eclipsed 90 one time, and that was when he hit 106.
That'd be
he's like 30. He's at 81, I think, right now.
Yeah, he's at 81 through 55.
33 goals.
Absolutely absurd.
God.
Yeah, he's got 9 more goals than Kucherov because Kucherov had 2 against Florida. And that
how are they stack up assist wise?
I can Google. Let me. Yeah, so 33 and 48 for Kaner for 81, and then Hockey DB because they were like, I think Kaner jumped ahead of him on Sunday afternoon, and then the Lightning played that night, and I think Kucherov jumped over him again in points.
Yeah,
because he had a 3-point night, so Kaner like tied him, and then Kucherov's got 24 and 60. He's got 84.
Okay.
Yeah, and Kucherov was exactly 100 last year, as we all know. He hit that 100, and but yeah, they obviously gave the MVP to Halsey, and him and McKinnon obviously were also very good. So yeah, but dude, the Blues right now are playing really well. In a side group chat, with you guys, I kind of said, I think I could see kind of Minnesota free falling here, maybe with, Koivu getting hurt. Vancouver, they're just so young. I don't know if they can keep this up. Colorado's not been playing well at all. Rantanen seems to really have slowed down in particular. I don't have the numbers to back it up, but I mean, him and McKinnon were just on an outrageous pace to begin the year, and they've definitely slowed up. I mean, I think everyone can agree there. Their record's showing it. They were at the top of the standings, and then, now they're on the outside looking in. But yeah, and then you've got the Blackhawks right now who are 4 back of Minnesota. The Avs are 4 back. The Canucks are 2 points out. And Blues also are at 59 points, but the Blues got 2 games in hand.
The big thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say the big thing for the Hawks, even maybe bigger than Kane's point total, is Crawford's been practicing with him.
Oh, man.
And if he comes back, again, not to, solely focus on the Hawks or anything, the Hawks get in that 8th playoff spot with a healthy Crow who hopefully can, perform the way that we know he can perform. And with the way that Kane's performing, I'm not going to say that they're going to beat, whoever they play, which would probably be like Winnipeg or Nashville or
Calgary.
Not going to say that they're going to be able to beat them, but there's a shot with those two performing. And the way Taves and
I would take
the rest of them,
over what Calgary's got.
Yeah, I mean, there's a decent chance that they could catch some teams sleeping, kind of like how the Kings caught Vancouver in 2012. Nobody thought that Vancouver was going to lose to LA. There, Vancouver were President's Trophy winners that year, and LA, kind of looked okay. They had a really good goalie and quick, and then they beat them 4-1. Like again, I'm not saying that the Hawks are going to win 4-1 or even, take it to 7 and win. Yeah, or make the playoffs. But the chances of that go up, I think, tremendously with Crow back in net. If he plays the way that he's capable of playing, which I have no reason to doubt that, he would suck if he comes
also,
back.
not to mention, the Hawks have a pretty favorable schedule from here on out. I forget who told me this or where I heard this, but I think they had amongst the league's toughest, schedule in the first half of the year before the All-Star break. And now, like, the current stretch of games they're in, and it's showing with the 7-game win streak, it's like they could keep pushing and like maybe lock up the first wild card spot when it's all said and done if things keep going that way, because they're playing some really shitty teams coming up. So if there's a time to make a move, like you win a couple you want to add a couple more games to this win streak, maybe you're buyers at the big buyers right now. Like,
I don't think too much either way. I don't think they should be. If they trade for a guy, you better have term on his contract. Like
it would be like I don't mean buyer in the sense like they're going to make a big move, but like because
I wouldn't buy it.
They're not in a position where they can where they're like, oh, if we make this one move, like this will put us over the top, like we're going all in for this year. But like I can see them being buyers in the sense like they'll add some more depth on the blue line or bottom six, something like that. Just like your typical depth.
They've got kind of a lot of defense with the kids they got coming up and who they've got up right now. Like,
yeah,
man,
think about it. Last weekend, there's talk of trading Brett Seabrook and Duncan Keith, and now we're talking about the playoffs. Like,
yeah,
and a week from now we can be saying, oh, like, sign me up for Jack Hughes. It's like it's crazy how fast that can happen.
Yeah, just to Kev, just to go back to your point, I looked at the schedule. They play LA like 3 times. They play Anaheim like 2 or 3 times. The only thing that's going to get a little dicey at the end of unless like you just said, unless they tank again, the only part of the schedule that looks pretty tough is like the last 5 or 6 games. They play Dallas twice. They play Winnipeg.
All Central.
It's all Central teams, and it's not Colorado or Minnesota. It's Dallas twice, Winnipeg at least once. I think Nashville might be in there twice. So if they don't rack up those games, on this side of March, if they don't, continue this win streak or at least stay consistent in their winning, that last 2-week stretch is just going to be fucking brutal.
Yeah. And you know what? They're in the game Thursday night against Vancouver, which was a big game because when that puck drop for that game, Vancouver, I believe, was in a playoff spot. And obviously, shithead Perlini had to give Vancouver a free point by doing a high stick in the fucking ozone, up a goal. So that Nick Schmaltz trade is really good, but Brendan Perlini stinks. That guy is I'm going to say he's kind of a bust. I mean, he's kind of come here. He's not looked comfortable at all. Like the kind of guys on the team, like the Chris Kunitzes, the Artem Anisimovs, if someone would be interested in a veteran presence like that down the middle, if maybe the Hawks kicked in $1 million or $2 million or a Perlini, like those are the kind of guys that they could still sell. I mean, the Hawks are in a weird spot. We're 4 out of the playoffs. They're also 4 out of last place. They're only 4 up on last place. This thing could go either way. It's kind of this whole Western Conference thing has been a seesaw. There's a lot of teams involved. Kind of looking at it, just this goes for all teams involved here. Like Anaheim they've got the talent. Like they might not be completely dead. I mean, they're 8 out. I would say they're probably dead, but yeah, with the way can they keep playing this bad? I mean, maybe, but LA's not a very good team. I absolutely hammered the Caps tonight. Loving that. LA was up fucking 3-2. I have the Washington puck line. I blinked. In 10 minutes, it's 5-3, so I'm fucking covering right now. So let's get that. Also took the Pittsburgh and Rick. Oh yeah, loving life right now. But yeah, like Colorado's struggling. Vancouver, can that team really hang on? Arizona is just riddled with injuries. Edmonton completely stinks. That team's in turmoil. You got LA and Anaheim. So it's really like I'm kind of looking at this thing based on Arizona being so injured. I'm kind of looking at it like you've got this is if St. Louis or Minnesota can't catch Dallas. So I'm kind of looking at it like there's 5 teams kind of going for 2 spots right now. You've got St. Louis, Minnesota, Vancouver, Colorado, and Chicago. Right now, St. Louis and Minnesota are in there, but Colorado's not playing well. Minnesota just lost Koivu.
It almost feels like it's the Hawks to lose, the way things are going with the other teams and the way things are going right now with the Hawks. Like, I know that there's still a decent amount of season left, but like you just said, with all the injuries and then the horrible slumps that some of these teams have been in, and the Hawks have been, they're 6-2-2 in their last 10.
If St. Louis didn't get hot, they'd be playing with fire right now.
Yeah, exactly. So it just makes you, God, I would hate it if they don't make playoffs.
Stretch right now where 7 of their next 9 are home. So that would it was when I think they had won 5 in a row. Yeah, because their last 2 games were Vancouver and Detroit. The Vancouver game was the start of 7 of their next 9 being at home. And one of their next, they got a road game tonight, Tuesday, at Boston, which is not going to be easy, going for 8 in a row. I would be very happy if they could just steal a point.
I was going to say, all they have to do is, potentially get one. Just don't lose, in regulation. You need to gather as many points. Yeah, they are, but that's inevitable. But just limit it as much as possible.
The thing about hockey, too, it's tough is when you're chasing teams and there's a lot of teams involved is we all know it, but when you really think about it, it sucks is the whole 3-point games. Like if you got 2 teams ahead of you playing each other, like I know like Minnesota and St. Louis are playing each other within the next week, and it's like just someone win that game in regulation. Like that, we don't need 2 teams accruing points in the same game that we're chasing. We just don't need that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people. That's one reason that a lot of people don't like the 3-point system, is they feel like it's hard to make a comeback at the end of the year. But the Blues have shown it's possible. If you sit on your hands and do nothing and you get really hot, then, it's possible. I think one more topic we wanted to cover, we were kind of talking about trades and acquisitions and such. But one thing I believe we wanted to discuss was Panarin changing his agent. Columbus has a real tough decision because they're a playoff team, but I think anyone with a brain's kind of starting to think that there's no way he's going to sign there. And does Columbus think with Panarin that they can make a cup run, or should they trade him and get something before they lose him to unrestricted free agency? Jarmo Kekalainen, their GM's not in an easy spot. But interesting enough, Panarin joined the same agent as fellow Russian countryman Sergei Bobrovsky, which has led to speculation that the 2 of them could be a package deal, whether that's some team ponies up at the deadline, or I think Florida has been a team, that's been linked to them because no state income tax in Florida, and Dale Talon's made a few cap dump trades here recently, like Nick Bjugstad, and and he also said to the media that they were hoping to be very active in the unrestricted free agent market. Man, Columbus is in a tough spot. If you're Jarmo, are you trading him? What are you doing? I think we've seen Nashville's been linked to Panarin, but I think a lot of teams would get involved there. But, it's probably going to cost any team a good prospect and a first-round pick. But, if you're a team, are you trading for him? If you're Jarmo, are you trading for him? Like, not an easy situation for anyone involved. But I personally don't think Columbus will win the Cup. I would probably trade him, but, it's a tough pill for the fans to swallow. But, it might be the savvy long-term move as much as it's not easy. That's just my opinion, but I want to know what you guys think.
Yeah, especially because they're in a playoff spot right now too. You kind of really have no excuse. I guess you do, but it's really hard to sort of explain that one to your fan base, how you're trading away your best player, while you're in a playoff spot. I do it would cost. I think a prospect in a first rounder is kind of, a little bit less than what it will be. What was the return for what's his name? McDonough last year at the deadline?
Well, they traded JT Miller and McDonough and got
right.
Nemestikov. Right? Wasn't it Nemestikov was the big
Nemestikov?
Yeah, it was Nemestikov. That was the big one.
And JT Miller was sort of like he wasn't an add-on because JT Miller, but it was essentially thought to just be Ryan McDonough. And then
I could look it up if we want, but
bad
was on their first line and they traded him. But I remember Nemestikov being the big trade.
Regardless, I feel acquiring Artemi Panarin and Sergei Bobrovsky is it's not going to be, a small ask. I feel like it's going to be a ton you're giving up.
The goalie and that, like, who the hell would?
Exactly. Like, that's sort of a pretty specific, thing. I don't know that many teams that would, be needing a premier goalie and a premier winger.
So they'll just wait till the summer.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was Hayek, Brett Howden, who's good, Nemestikov, 2018 first round pick, and another pick.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And it was obviously, it was a conditional second round pick. So I think that was if Tampa made the conference final or if which they obviously didn't, but, or did they? Fuck.
Either way, but I think
they lose. What round they lose to the Caps? Man, this is bad.
Yeah, bad couple minutes.
They lost to the Caps.
A little rusty, folks. It's okay. We'll get there.
Either way. So the main thing I got from Panarin switching agents was it kind of sounds like he already knows where he wants to go and what he wants to do when he's no longer under contract. Like, there were rumors, pretty much since the offseason that he has, like, he wants to join a big market team. But, like, it doesn't seem like that's something you do, switching agents in the middle of the year, unless your agent has your agent is not complying to what you want, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I mean, it seems like he's going to leave. So if you're the GM of your Yarmo and you're sitting there, right now, okay, if the playoffs started right now, they would be at Washington without home ice. They're only up on a playoff spot right now by 3 points on Carolina. I mean, they've got 2 games in hand. But Carolina, I mean, you're literally 2 points up on Pittsburgh from being the last wild card spot. And then, like, you're talking about 2 points away right now from playing Tampa in the first round. And I'm all for going for it. But you got to be smart. You got to think of the long term. Columbus is a pretty, decently well-rounded team. They've got a nice core on the back end with Werenski and Seth Jones. And, if Bobrovsky and Panarin leave, those are 2 huge holds. I mean, you're missing a top-line winger and you're missing a number 1 goaltender. But if you can get a dynamic prospect and a first-round pick back, I mean, you kind of got to just kind of look in the mirror and look at yourself honestly and say, are we going to win the cup? And I know it's not easy for fans and it's not easy on the GM, but I think I feel like they've made a concerted effort to sign them. If the 2 of them are going to freaking leave, then I feel like there's going to be a way bigger market for Panarin than Bobrovsky. I mean, how many surefire playoff teams right now really need goaltending anyway?
I mean, you've already mentioned a lot in the East. I mean, everybody's pretty much stagnant. Even if you look at the West, it's pretty,
yeah,
it's pretty decent. So.
I mean, you could maybe make an argument that Calgary, but man, I feel like Calgary might we've heard them linked to Zuccarello. I mean, that's kind of what sounds like they're aiming to do, but I mean, that's just speculation, but
I just thought of this now, and it really scares me. It pains me, but the St. Louis Blues would be a wagon if they had Vladimir Tarasenko and Artemi Panarin playing together as well as they're playing right now. I know, it feels like sacrilege, but then oh my God, they'd be and people forget my pick to win the Stanley Cup this year, or I don't think I gave a specific pick, but I did say it's going to be from the Central, and it might be the St. Louis Blues. So,
fucking kill you.
Do I want to be right more than I want the Blues not to win the Stanley Cup? I don't know.
I think Colorado would be another team. I mean, if you're talking about a team that could use Bobrovsky and Panarin, Jesus, Colorado. Colorado would be fun. Scary for us, bad. It'd be bad, but
Dallas would be scary.
There goes their first overall pick, right?
Dude, Dallas doesn't need goaltending. Khudobin and Ben Bishop.
Yeah, they've been playing really well.
Dallas.
I was thinking of it more from Panarin's standpoint, obviously, because you get fucking Ben Sagan. And then
you could put Panarin on any.
Yeah, true.
Panarin. Yeah, maybe that's what Tampa does. They just go all in.
Yep.
Oh my God, dude.
Panarin with Kucherov.
That would be
see you later. Just might as well give him the cup at this
But,
point.
I mean, yeah, I think Panarin's going to get traded. My prediction is he gets traded. I think Nashville or somebody steps up here and makes a move.
Oh, God.
We've heard Boston linked to him. I mean, there's a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say Boston.
Boston with him and Pasta. Oof. That'd be just.
I mean, you still run into it with Rask. Rask has been, doing pretty decent.
I was going to say, are we still under the assumption that these two are getting traded together?
I do not think they're going to get traded together.
Okay.
I think that they might sign together in the offseason, but I do not think.
Okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm sure they would enjoy that, but I also think there's a good chance maybe they don't even trade. Maybe they trade Panarin, but don't trade Bobrovsky. I mean, I don't know how many teams are going to lining up for Bobrovsky right now. I mean, he's good, but
yeah, from that standpoint, if you got to pick one, obviously, I think Panarin's going to look much more attractive to just about any team out there, especially since we've just covered almost every playoff team that's got a bona fide number one starter. So.
Yeah.
And think of it this way too, maybe if they do sell Bobrovsky, a team who's not necessarily in the playoffs, but they could trade for him in sort of hopes of if they're the Panthers, like you said, or maybe the Rangers or some shit.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Something if you can just get them in the offseason. If you're not going to the playoffs.
What I'm saying is yeah, I guess that's a good point. But I was going to say you get one or so you acquire Bobrovsky, lock him up in hopes of being able to lure in Panarin in the offseason.
I don't care where Panarin's getting traded. I don't care if Bobrovsky gets traded. I 100% think that they will both hit the market July 1st. I think
I think you're 100% right on that.
Won't resign. They might not. If Panarin got traded somewhere, I'm not saying it's impossible. He wouldn't re-up with that team, but I think he'll at least test the waters. I mean, they're going to see what's out. There's so many teams that are got to hit the cap floor and all this stuff. Man, you look at Ottawa's cap situation. There's talk that freaking Stone and Duchesne could get traded or walk. Man, that's a team that's going to be eating bad contracts or just throwing stupid money around. Yeah, I don't think Panarin wants to play in Ottawa, but you get my drift. There's going to be teams out there that like Florida, they're just going to have oodles of cap space, have to hit the minimum. That's why they get linked there, because it makes sense from a hockey standpoint. It makes sense. Panarin could go play with Barkov, and Luongo's old as shit, and Reimer's not a number one. It makes sense, and there's no state income tax. We all know these fucking Russians love their rubles, so you know what? Maybe that's why. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it is going to be Florida, but break my heart. I think the Hawks are aiming. They're poised. Not to bring them up again, but we're going. There's been talk of Duchesne. There's been talk of Stone. There's been talk of a reunion with the Breadman, but yeah, I mean, I think based on what the cap situation is with the cap going up and a lot of these Sunbelt teams that are, got low payrolls, I mean, I think the Hawks might not be the high bidder if that's a guy they want. They might get outbid. Or it goes for anyone. Duchesne, Stone, anybody, these big names.
I mean, the Hawks are going to have a ton of cap space. I think I saw Chief, friend of the program, by the way. If we get rid of Anisimov, we have this doesn't. But I think I saw that can't be right. No.
Say that again.
I think so. One step is trading Anisimov, or just shedding that salary, however you want. But I think there is a very plausible way that the Hawks will have upwards of $20 million in cap space this summer.
Oh yeah,
$25 million.
Oh yeah, and then you've got. They've got. Maybe guys
because so the blue line is going to be really rather inexpensive for probably the next 3 years. While all those young guys are going to be on their entry level deals.
You still have got Murphy. You still have Murphy, Keith, Seabrook side. Yeah. You have Gustafsson right now. They've got Dahlstrom up. Boquist is coming up. You've got Ian Mitchell. You've got Jokiharju. Someone actually might get fucking traded this. The Hawks' forward help might come from their surplus of young B-men. And they've got some – the Hawks have some really, really freaking interesting prospects. You've got Evan Barrett, who's lighting up Penn State. You've got Boquist. You've got Ian Mitchell. You've got Mackenzie Entwistle. This is a team that Kane and Taves are showing that they can freaking still play at a very high level, especially Kane. Tay's having a great renaissance year. He's eating meat again, folks. You know what? He started growing his own food, but I'm not going to hate on JT. But
I thought about this earlier when we were talking about the Leafs. Would you trade? I don't know if this would get it done, but like just sort of start here.
Jokiharju
trade. I was going to say Adam Boqvist.
No.
I'm
not trading him for Nylander. No fucking.
I think Adam Boqvist is what it would cost for sure. No way, Jokiharju.
Then guess what? I'm going to hang on to my 8th overall pick who's going to run the fucking PP next year, and I'm going to go pay Stone a bunch of money.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, like, I would do something like Jokiharju and maybe a first-round pick and a couple other things, but, like I understand Nylander has a lot of value, but like, you know what, Nylander, the thing is, the Leafs are kind of tied up. They got their hands tied right now, in a sense, depending on what they have to pay Marner, because if Marner doesn't take a discount, like if Marner gets 10.5, then like hell, man, like they pretty much have to trade somebody. So
do you think that would happen like at the deadline?
No, they're gonna bride Nylander in the playoffs, and then you know they could add maybe another vet at the deadline or something, but yeah, I mean Nylander's a name that's been floated around for sure, but I mean, yeah, I mean. Boqvist, yeah, I mean, I understand why they'd ask for him, but I mean, I think the way he's been playing right now and the need he fills for the Hawks don't really have a game-breaking offensive talent on their blue line. Like, we've got a lot of stay-at-home guys right now. Oh, another guy to even mention is freaking Forsling, dude. Like, they have so many young defensemen. It's crazy, dude. Like, they're not all up right now, but dude, they're moving at least one, at least two. Like Forsling, Jokiharju, Boqvist, Mitchell,
Gustafsson, or do you keep Gustafsson?
Gustafsson.
I would say keep him. The way he commands the power play with Kane.
I like him in a very sheltered role. He's if you play him with like Seabrook on your bottom pairing, like you've got a nice bottom pairing.
Yeah. I
don't think him and Seabrook should be playing more than number 5 or number 6 minutes, but yeah, I mean, I think Keith can still be a competent 4, and I think Murphy's showing he can be a 3. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, I think the Hawks might go into next year with just a bunch of like number 3 and 4 guys, which isn't the worst thing, but it's not the best thing. But I don't really think they have a number 1 guy, but that's what they're hoping Boqvist will be. But I mean, you can't expect that from him at 20. But you know, we can't all be Drew Doughty just buzzing around in the Vancouver Olympics at like 20 on a team with like 18 Hall of Famers, you know. But yeah, I mean, I think we covered a lot. Dan, you wanted to get into what the puck? I don't know if Kevin, I don't know if you had one ready, but I guess Dan wanted.
I just wanted to bring it up for the people at home if they hadn't heard it or whatever. So basically, long story short, is this couple from Anaheim got married and they decided for their honeymoon they were going to see. I think it was at least 4 games Anaheim play, and I believe it was during the Canada part of their road trip, their most recent road trip. So Nick, you mentioned they played Ottawa, they played Montreal. Who else did they play for? I think they were all there were 2 other teams that were in like their list, and they made this sign and it said like newlywed Anaheim Duck road trip, and had all these teams, and they marked off where they had been with an X. And when you go back and you look at the stats for the games, they lost all 4 games that this couple went to. And they didn't just lose, 2-1. Oh, we got a point in overtime, or it went to a shootout. They got fucking shelled. I think the closest game was 4-1. I think it was 4-1, 4-0, and then like the 6-2 and 9-3 or whatever games it was. So I just thought that was funny. I mean, I feel bad for the couple. But, at the same time, your team's dog shit. Why would you go on a road trip with them and fucking watch them? Anyway, I just thought it was kind of funny. So throw that in there. Sorry, Anaheim.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I had to really throw one out there, just be like, just fucking Edmonton. Like, just, again.
In general.
Really? Like, just ever since they went to that cup, where they got Pronger and went to that run when they lost to Carolina in 7. Like, outside of that one year where they got hot and lost to Anaheim. And I think they literally have only made the playoffs once, and that was the 1 year, right? I don't think they've made it.
I think you're right. Yeah,
they've completely.
And if you look back at that series too, I think they could have beat Anaheim, and the game. I think at least two of the games, because I think they lost the series 4-2. I think at least two of their losses, they absolutely shot themselves in the foot. Like they would have had. I think one of the games they had like a 1 or 2 goal lead with just a few minutes left. And they lost it, and then Anaheim went on to win it in overtime. There were a couple games where they.
You're right. I know what you're talking about.
They screwed up.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't even necessarily that Anaheim beat them. It's just that they like not fell apart, but for lack of a better word or phrase, they fell apart.
Yeah. No, definitely, man. Just what else?
I don't know what the puck. I did want to add one last thing. This happened today, actually. This hits a little bit close to home for us. Scott Darling, goalie for the Carolina Hurricanes, former Blackhawks goalie. He's taking a leave of absence for a personal issue. So, just got to hope everything's okay there. He's been pretty open about mental health, in his tenure with the Blackhawks. So, Chicago boy, hopefully everything's okay. And,
I like that teams are letting it. I don't know how much say teams have in it when a player's literally like, dude, I gotta take some time off. But somebody else of note took some time off like that, and I can't remember who it was. And I think it was just within the last season or two. And they've come back now. Oh man, I wish I could think of who it was. But I feel like 10 years ago or something like that.
It wasn't Austin.
Oh, what's his name? Jordan Lupul, right?
Joffrey Lupul?
No, Joffrey Lupul. Did I say Jordan? What the fuck?
Yeah.
That
maybe
also really sad and fucked up. But
who was that?
The Predators forward. Yeah, it wasn't good.
But what I was
look it up at home, folks. Not a fun subject, but
yeah. But what I was going to say is I feel like, I don't know, 5-10 years ago, I don't know, I could be 100% wrong. I'm sure there might be a stat out there that has, this person took a leave of absence, but I like the teams are doing this because if you're not 100% mentally, and not even just like mentally committed to the game, if you're just not 100% mentally there, if something's bugging you, I like that the teams are letting these players take a leave.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. I just thought of it. Was it Tuukka Rask?
No, I feel like if somebody said it, I'd be like, boom, that was it.
Well, Tuukka took a leave of absence.
Maybe it was Joffrey Lupul. I don't know. But
I just Google it. Yeah, Tuukka Rask in November took a leave of absence.
Did he? Okay.
But maybe
either way, I like that, Carolina allowed him to do it, get back to 100 because you're not going to be.
The Senators also let Craig Anderson when his wife was going through.
That's another great example. You're not going to be at 100% if things at home are not 100%. So I definitely hope everything's okay.
Yeah, with him. We don't want to speculate, but you just hope it's he's playing shitty.
Whatever it is, I hope he figures it out.
Pissed off, and you just hope it isn't something that's like obviously if you're pissed off, it's a personal issue, but you guys know what I mean. Like we hope it's not, anything like the demons he's battled in the past. So all the best to Chicago, Lamont, Illinois' finest, Scotty Darling. So I don't really have a what the puck other than just unless we want to get another half-hour wormhole with the fucking Oilers again. But
I don't think we need to go there again. Poor Edmonton suffered enough.
Yeah,
I'm sure something will happen in the next 6 days that will give us another 40 minutes of content for the next episode.
What, for Edmonton fucking up, or you just mean in general? The Edmonton listeners of our podcast have just left, so sorry.
Yeah, it's all right.
But, boys, I don't really have anything else to add, so that's kind of it on my end.
Yeah, I think we're good till next week, and we'll
we are.
Get after it and make sure.
This episode, but I think we'll get back in the swing of things.
Yeah.
Playoff. You got trade deadline, playoff race. We hated our little hiatus, but we think we've got a strategy and a game plan that we can pump these out on a more consistent basis. And the haters and losers, of which there are many, may say that we are only back because the Blackhawks are playing well. Maybe we were just turned off by the NHL in general because our team was struggling, and now all of a sudden we're back after a 7-game win streak. But we had, we're young professionals, so, personal stuff getting in the way. Dan was overseas in Europe. It just logistically wasn't working out, and we apologize. But we know we have some people that may or may not have missed us, but may be willing to give us a second chance to jump back into it. So we appreciate any love and support and people who tune back into us and anyone who joins us in the future. So Demar, Kev, fun as always. We'll talk next week.
Absolutely, fellas. Catch you boys later.
See you.
Peace.